How can engineers use their skill sets to operationalize business strategies in fields outside of engineering?
All right. So first thing is, no matter the industry or the company you work for, they all have one thing in common, right? The people. The people are
Did you know that over 30% of talent acquisition professionals come from a non-HR backgrounds, and engineers are one of the fastest growing groups making the leap? And in this episode, I'm excited to sit down with Gwatoh Kroma, Global Recruitment Account Lead at Accenture, to explore the intersection of engineering and recruitment and whether the skills and mindset of an engineer can be leveraged to drive success in talent acquisition. From problem solving to data analysis, we examine the transferable skills that can make engineers effective talent acquisition specialists. I am your host, Tiffany Tichy, and this is the Women in Engineering podcast. And with that, let's jump right into today's episode. Now it's time to jump right into the main segment of our episode today. I have with me Gwatoh Kroma. Welcome, Gwatoh, to the Women in Engineering podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Tiffany, for having me. Truly excited to be here today, for sure.
Yes. Gwatoh, can you start by sharing a bit about yourself and the pivotal moments that led you to your career as far as current role as a global recruitment account lead at Accenture?
I know. That's a mouthful. Global recruitment account lead, right? Well, first off, I'm a mom of two. I'm consider myself a creative and a mathematician, and actually recently just celebrated 20 years at Accenture. I started in 2004 working in the financial services space doing calculations for car loans. And then when I joined Accenture, most of my projects in those early days were focused on that. So doing calculations either in the government space, in specific industries like banking. And essentially that's what my career is sort of tied to, is math and doing calculations. I've had the pleasure of working in the background on what we call the SDLC, right? The software development lifecycle. So first, I sort of worked my way backwards. I started off as a tester. So testing all those calculations, seeing those numbers come across, and 1 + 1 = 2. That your money is coming out of your Wells Fargo account and it's coming out correctly. And then I moved into the development space where I taught myself how to code and eventually got certified in Java. And then continued to the early part of the SDLC where I started working on solutioning and architecting business deals. Because by that point, I was knowledgeable enough about several industries. I could kind of see how technology could move in the background. So when it came to pitching to our clients and coming up with estimates on what a project would cost and what it would look like, I was able to do that over some time and learn my way around the business development side. And then eventually I was like, well, all this techie stuff, obviously we're impacting people. So how can I be more involved on the people side of things and help and mentor and sponsors those who look like me? And when I say look like me, women and people of color, so Black women and Black men and people of color, right? Just focusing on, all right, we provide them the technology every day, but where's the HR part of it? How, once they get hired, I needed someone to kind of help me guide me through my career at Accenture. So that's honestly why I decided to join HR and move into the recruitment space so that I could have a little bit of insight into what's happening up front to support my mentees on the backside.
Love it. Love it. Now, as we talk about that piece, how has your background in engineering and technology influenced your approach to talent acquisition?
Well, to be honest, when I first started in HR or joined HR, I didn't have much experience in the HR space, but I did have a lot of experience in the people space because what we call our plus ones. So my day job is doing all these calculations, right? But I also had people I was mentoring, and then I did a bunch of plus one initiatives and activities to help bring more women into our organization. Like, how could we go to university and specifically target Black women who are graduating and make sure that I can convert them from university to becoming new employees at Accenture? And so I focused on building the technology behind that. So how do I capture data to help me see the trends and be able to target specific universities or specific groups, so that at the end of the day, I could guide our leadership team on how they could impact our people and do it in a very intentional way. You know, data is gold. It is gold, right? So you have to be super intentional with data so that it can help you build an ecosystem to give you the outcomes that you need. And I'm saying words that engineers know, right? Ecosystem and data. And we get used to that over the years of going through university and then all the various jobs you hold as an engineer. So that already shows, you know, you have a foundation as an engineer. Now it's just more of the people side of things and applying that to the soft skills.
I love it. I love it. And yes, in the industry itself, it has all these, you know, acronyms and language and stuff. And so yes, you were hitting on them. You was hitting on them a little bit. So how can engineers use their skill sets to operationalize business strategies in fields outside of engineering?
All right. So first thing is, no matter the industry or the company you work for, they all have one thing in common, right? The people. The people are the investment and the number one asset. Like, no matter what you do, even if you're a small business owner, entrepreneur, right? Or you work for a large company organization, the best part of a company is the humans and the people that do the work. So it doesn't matter what industry you go into as an engineer, those people require systems, processes that directly impact the day-to-day work that they're doing, right? As engineers by nature, you know, we have characteristics that we want to implement these things. Anytime I come up to a new challenge, I'm ready to figure out, okay, how can I quickly solve it? What kind of mathematical, analytical thing I need to put towards it? We're constantly trying to think of improvements as engineers. So taking those like very tangible skills, soft skills that engineers have, and applying it to where processes and ecosystems are needed in the business. So that way you can impact no matter what industry you're in, you're able to leverage your engineering skills. I think the number one is our attention to detail. We can both agree.
Yes.
Engineers have a keen knack for attention to detail, right? And that's often what a leadership team needs or a business team needs, is someone who not only has the technical knowledge, but also how can we sort of pay attention to the small little details that will give us the best outcome.
That's good. That's good. And you're so right. It's all about the details. It's all about, it's more than what the big picture. You got to look at what is it that you're really getting into, so you can fit it as well. So let's go into, what are some of the key challenges you see in creating a positive candidate experience, and how do you address them?
Well, I want us to think about it from since COVID, okay? Because the strategies that we used pre-COVID all went out the window. Because since COVID, we are so much more borderless, right? So before, you were hiring people in a particular location to do a particular thing at a particular time, physically. So someone in New York would get paid more than someone in, say, Idaho. At the end of the day, it was a matter of where you are. And since COVID, everything is borderless now, right? So the challenge is bringing what's the unique experience that is needed in a particular client environment, right? And then how does it look different in Thailand versus Ireland versus New York City? And the people that you're bringing in, what are some of the challenges that they're experiencing in their unique lifestyle in those locations? So is it that we need to focus on maternity leaves, paternity leaves? Do you need to focus on dental care? Like, what are the total rewards packages that you can present someone that gives them their unique challenge, right? So, and then once you figure out what that uniqueness is per location, is figure out how to scale it. So I can solve it for one or two people, but what if I'm hiring hundreds or thousands at a time? How do I ensure that the unique experience can happen at one person, 5 person, 100, or 1,000? And when you're thinking about that scaling, it is important to pay attention to the human touch points. So where in the candidate experience is that person going to interact with a human? So there are interviews that you're going to have, because there's so many like automated tools that is being used in talent acquisitions these days, right? But the key thing to ensuring that there's a positive experience for candidates is, where are those human touch points happening, that when I design my automation, that my recruiters can really focus on the human touch points. I've made their jobs easier in automation to allow them to focus on the human touch points, where they can like magnify that experience for the candidate.
That's key. It's the human side of it.
Yeah.
So I mean, you touched on the whole automation side of things. So let's go into that. How has automation transformed talent acquisition, and what opportunities do you see for further innovation?
Well, I think one of the key things with automation is just how, let's look at it two ways. There's the recruiter side of things, so the talent acquisition team, and then you have the candidate, right? On the candidate side, there's so many different tools nowadays that can help you write your resume, prepare for an interview. We strongly suggest our candidates sort of go through some of that just to prepare. But on the recruiter and talent acquisition team, we now have tools that help us to get through a lot of data at once if we're hiring, because hiring is just not for one or two people at this point. It's like hundreds and thousands of people, right? So what are some of the tools that we can use to automate us seeing the trends, so that I can be able to quickly shift and change? An example of that is working in San Francisco. We had a university just across the street from our office. And one of the things I suggested to our team was, hey, they just added a graduate program in a data science. Who's in that data science program? Is it 90% male, 10% female? And if it is, what's feeding into that data science program? And how can we get involved so that when those students are done with their graduate program, they actually think of Accenture? So automating the way that we pull in data to then be able to take action, I think, is a key opportunity. That's now we have AI and all of that to help us do so. So if you don't have those skills already, it's important to start learning and just trying it out, even if you're not in the talent acquisition space.
That's good. You're giving some key strategies and things to look at when it comes to it. So I love it. But let's talk about some strategies, as far as what strategies do you recommend for engineers who want to progress in their careers beyond technical roles?
The first thing is just determining what are your skill sets and strengths beyond the technical part. What are those soft skills? What are those things that people often tell you over and over? And over the years, that's what I've tried to get in tune into, right? I learned over the years that I really enjoy working with young people. So those coming out of university, I connect well with them. So I made it a point that when there were new candidates or new joiners coming into the company, I was part of their onboarding. So I forced myself to go up and talk to them in their first, 90 days or even in the first week of being at the company, because I wanted not only to develop my speaking skills, but also because people always told me that, you're so kind and so friendly. It's nice that, you have a nice smile. So why not take that, own it, and use that as a way to give back. And I found that if I start at university or high school, I can really reach young women, young African American women earlier in the process, right? Before they even get on Accenture's radar. So that's, I think looking at your soft skills is super important, and learning yourself, because that technical side will come no matter what. There's so many smart engineers out there, right?
Right. That's good. That's good. I mean, building upon it, the soft skills is important. The communication piece is important. So you've touched on some great strategies. So what's key skills from engineering are most valuable when transitioning into non-traditional roles like recruitment or talent management?
So earlier we talked a little bit about our analytical skills, our attention to detail. I think those are important. One of the top ones, though, for an engineer, we are curious people. Right? We want to know how it's working in the back end. You give me something nice and pretty up front, I want to know how the gears are working in the back. I think having that insatiable curiosity is super important when you're moving from one industry to another, or from an engineering role into another. We tend to be very creative and innovative and just trying to solve a problem. And that's what our most business leaders need, right? They need someone who's going to come in and say, I see these 5 or 6 things. Let me help you solve number 2. And this is how I am going to do number 2. And I think engineers are really great at doing that, because we have the problem steps and we know how to follow them and create a roadmap to doing so. The number one thing, though, I think engineers are used to doing is being a team player. Because we know we can't really solve anything by ourselves. Like there has to be an even keel team. I think the agile methodology has really brought that to the forefront, that when you're on a team, you're only as strong as the weakest person on the team, right? And when we say what is everyone's strength, how can we sort of fit it together so that we are a strong team together? So I think when you are moving across industry or changing roles, pointing out the fact that you are a team player and showing how you've been able to do that you're curious, and that you're here to help them solve problems. That's key skills that engineers can take across the line.
That's it. You've hit it. Yes, you have to work as a team. I mean, that is important. You can't be in your silos, and I think that's the biggest piece.
Yeah, for sure.
You hit on. I love it. I love it. So let's talk about what is the significance of having a personal career board of directors, and how can engineers benefit from building one?
Yeah, so what was this, like 15 years ago, one of my mentors shared that with me, that she essentially has a board of directors for her career. And so I was like, ooh, that's really good. That sounds good. So how do I want to kind of make that fit for me? I think no matter who you work for, right, a company or yourself, it's important to always be investing in yourself and think of yourself as an entity that requires advisors, strategists, mentorship, sponsorship, right? And as engineers, we're naturally analytical anyways, and we want to follow our process and take step by step, and following a roadmap. So my mind went to, okay, if I think of myself as a business or as an entity, what does my business plan look like for Gwatoh? And then having the individuals that will help me get to that roadmap and building out my business plan. We don't know everything, right? We just need experts in those specific spaces that we can tap on their shoulder, and especially ones that you can trust, that you have already built a foundation of trust with. So that if I need an answer in 24 hours or 48 hours, there's someone I can go to get that answer. You already have it in place, and you're not just going and trying to Google on LinkedIn to find somewhere. So yeah, I think having a board of directors is super important. I tap into mine consistently. Some have come and gone. Some have been here for 15 plus years. Some have been here only a couple of years. But it's important to keep thinking in that mindset so that you're always investing in yourself.
That's it. Investing in yourself,
Yeah.
and relationship and connection is key.
Absolutely.
Now let's talk about, in your experience, what role does mentorship play in both personal and career growth?
Fact of the matter is, everyone needs a mentor and everyone should be a mentor. So I think mentorship goes both ways, in that you should have people that you're mentoring and people that are mentoring you. Now, mentorship is different than sponsorship, right? Sponsorship, there is an equity from that person related to your career and your performance. And when I say equity, meaning they got money tied to you succeeding. That's a sponsorship, right? Meaning that they put your name in a hat with some investor. You'll probably get a percentage for doing so. That's the kind of transactional relationship you have. Mentorship, however, it is about tapping into each other's strengths. So having that, what we just talked about, right? The career board of directors, having a group of people that aren't necessarily on the same trajectory as you, but are ahead enough in their career that they've experienced some things to be able to help you and share with you along the way. And then people you're mentoring, because at the end of the day, it's always important to sort of reach back and pull people along. I have learned so much from people that I have mentored over the years that sometimes I'm talking to them, I'm like, ooh, maybe I should put that in my little journal to help me along the way. So I think it's important to go both ways.
Yes. And I mean, I'm so glad you brought up the sponsorship and mentorship and breaking it down, because a lot of people don't just think it's all about mentoring, but that sponsor piece is just as important. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
So as we close out, what final piece of advice can you share with women engineers and professionals striving to grow and succeed in today's competitive job market?
I'm glad you said women engineers, right? Because it's important to just be yourself and be human. Tap into that womanhood, that sisterhood. An example of that is, over the years, I have a group of women engineers that I have sort of in my little pocket, that we are just there to push each other. Like, hey, today XYZ conference is happening next week. Are you going? If you aren't going, it's probably good for your career. It is important to have and tap into that womanhood, because what technology will do, it'll help us get into the data and be very technical, that we end up sort of losing the human side of things. And that is what makes us set apart. And that's what makes us unique, is that we continue to be ourselves, be human. Because when you tap into your diversity of experiences, your background, your lifestyle, etc., and connect that with your passion, you can do anything. So don't let anybody tell you any different. I am very different than my counterparts on my team, but that's because I bring to the table all of the experiences I've been through, because no one's path is the same as another, right? And that's exactly what you need to tap into. Be human.
This good. I love it. Thank you so much. You have been a great guest on the show. You've dropped some nuggets, your wisdom, pearls of wisdom. So thank you so much for being a great guest.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Really do.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you won't miss our upcoming episodes featuring interviews with inspiring women engineers, discussions about industry trends, and much more. Go to womeninengineeringpodcast.com, where you will find a summary of the key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during this episode. Until next time, may your engineering endeavors be as remarkable as the women whose stories we're sharing. Stay curious, keep innovating, and engineer a better future.